Good afternoon. I'm Cheryl Johnson, Chief of Staff, and on behalf of our director, Lonnie Bunch, welcome to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. As a native of New Orleans, I am honored to welcome you to today's program. Today's program, A Culinary Legacy, a conversation between Dr. Jessica Harris and New Orleans' own Mrs. Leah Chase. In the past 9 months since the museum opened, we have welcomed more than 2 million visitors. We have hosted 50 public programs, and today's program is especially an honor because it features a living legacy. Today's program features Mrs. Chase and Dr. Jessica Harris. Mrs. Chase and her late husband, Edgar Dookie Chase, demonstrated the qualities of determination and resiliency when they opened a thriving sandwich shop and barroom in New Orleans 71 years ago, and it is today one of New Orleans' best and most famous restaurants. Today's program, we will have Dr. Harris, a respected historian, cookbook author, and the museum's culinary advisor. Please listen as she engages Mrs. Chase in a discussion on her life and work as a businesswoman and a cultural innovator who has shaped the taste and sensibilities of New Orleans. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Leah Chase and Dr. Harris.
I went to Dookie Chase to get something to eat. But when you looked at me and said, Ray, you sure look me nice early in the morning.
Oh, okay. That's much better. There you go. Now you got me. Okay. A woman who has won New Orleans' prestigious Loving Cup Award from the Times-Picayune. She's also won the ACLU's Ben Smith Award. There's a gallery named after her in the Southern Museum of Food and Beverage. She has an art fund in her name at the New Orleans Museum of Art, where she is a board member emerita. She was the inspiration for Disney's first African-American princess in The Princess and the Frog. She has a portrait by Gustav Blach III in the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery, and upstairs on the 4th floor, her iconic red chef's jacket along with a menu from Dookie Chase Restaurant are all enshrined. So please join me in again welcoming Mrs. Leah Chase.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is wonderful.
So let's begin at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. Where did you grow up? What was life like? And what did you eat?
My childhood was not very much. I grew up in a small town, Madisonville, and there are many advantages of growing up in a small town. You learn in what they call a little country town. You learn everything. You know how to trek through the woods. You know what you can touch, what you can't touch, what berry you can eat, what berry you can't eat. You learn a lot growing up in a small town. I ate a lot of vegetables then. I was a vegetarian before it was fashionable because there was no meat to put on the table until it was time for you to kill that hog. But before that, you know, depression was what, from 1929 to really
Almost to
1940,
World War II,
41
yeah.
before we got out of that mess. So we had nothing, absolutely nothing, just no meat, no anything. My daddy grew everything we ate, grew a lot of onions, so I grew up eating grits and onions maybe for dinner.
All right.
And that was what we used to call back in that day smothered onions. Now they're caramelized onions. So you grow up,
Okay.
you grow up, you planted strawberries and you had strawberry jam and strawberry wine. It always had that strawberry wine. And, you know, if little quails would come down and into your strawberry, well, naturally you had to shoot them. So I was eating quails with plum jelly on it when it wasn't fashionable. So now it's
Before
fashionable.
it was grand. Okay.
So it was fun growing up in those days. And I guess I was a strange little girl because I was always a dreamer. My mother would call us out when they would have a rainbow. And you know, if you live in a small town without these big buildings, the rainbows are gorgeous. You can see them. You can see them clearly in the sky, big rainbows. She would always call us to see the rainbow. Come see the rainbow. I'd look at the rainbow, and you know, my thoughts were, there's a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. And if you look at a rainbow in a country, you feel like you can really walk to the end of that rainbow. And I always wished I could walk to the end of that rainbow and get that gold.
That pot of gold.
Never could see, never got it. Never got to the end of that rainbow.
Well, you might
Never
have found
got
the
that
pot of gold. Might have found the pot of gold. Now, I happen to know that when you were very small and until this day, you are not a Starbucks drinker. You don't drink coffee.
Don't drink coffee. Why? I don't know. And you know, in those days, which was sad, Dr. Harris, you didn't question your parents about anything. If they said something was this way, that was it. I never knew why I didn't, because my mother had all these children. Everybody for breakfast had coffee and biscuits, coffee and biscuits. I had cocoa because I didn't drink coffee. And I never asked her why. I never, ever asked her why I didn't drink coffee. But I never did all my life. I was the only one that never drank coffee. Then I began, as you get older and you start thinking back, she lost her oldest child at 18 months. Oh, the child was pulling up like children do and pulled the tablecloth down and scalded herself with hot coffee or hot whatever. And those days they didn't know how to treat burns and all that, so she died. So maybe that's why my mother didn't give me coffee or something. I never knew why I didn't drink coffee.
All right.
But I'd like to try it right now.
All right. We may have to make that happen.
I like to try a good cup of that little hot Starbucks coffee.
Well, this sort of takes us up to the point at which you are getting ready to go into high school, is it not? You're about 13.
I was 12 years old.
All right. What happens?
12 years old. And, well, I came up in Madisonville under the Sisters of the Holy Family. They were teaching out there. And my mother was always a stickler for getting people educated. She wanted us to read and write, and you had to speak correctly. No slangs. Mother didn't allow us to use slangs. When the thing came to be okay, we couldn't even say okay. We had to say, it's all right. We couldn't say okay. That was no slangs, no nothing in the house. So when I came to go to high school, you know, I was the only one from Madisonville to ever attempt to go to high school. And my grandfather, he pitched a fit. He said, you can leave home and you can leave your family. And I said, well, my mother said I'm going to do this. And I came to New Orleans to go to high school. That was some kind of experience. I hated coming to New Orleans. I hated it because I'm used to wide open spaces. Now I come to this city, all these houses, one on top of the other one. I couldn't understand that. And it wasn't a good experience for me, but I struggled through the 4 years of that.
You got through them.
I got through them.
What did you think of the food in New Orleans when you first got there from the country?
Well, you know, the food, they had different things than we had. In Madisonville, we had more vegetables and pork and things that we grew. And when we got to New Orleans, it was more seafood, some shrimp, some things like this. But the thing that got to me and I couldn't understand, if you grow up in a country town like I did, you didn't have grocery stores on the corner like you had in New Orleans. And I could not understand going to the grocery and buying what the Creoles call, would you believe, half red beans and half rice. Now you went, and you know what that half was, Jessica? It was a half a nickel. For a nickel, you could buy enough red beans and rice to cook for your dinner. I didn't like that. I'm used to buying, give me a sack of onions, a sack of flour, and that kind of thing. So that was quite a different thing for me to understand how people ate differently, how they did different things than we did in the country. And I miss the wide open spaces. I like my space.
But you also, when you came to the city, you were different. Most young Creole ladies went into being seamstresses.
Yep.
As I understand, and you did not really want to do that.
Until today, I don't understand my mind. I don't understand. I'm always thinking out here, thinking climbing. And Dookie used to tease me about that. He used to say, honey, God's going to punish you because you're never satisfied. God's going to punish you because you're not grateful. But it isn't that I'm not grateful. I just got that climb and that drive. I got to keep moving up. So I just couldn't see myself, the women of color, the so-called Creoles du Coeur, as they called themselves, the Creoles of color, worked in sewing factories, and they had them all over New Orleans. One was Haskell Brothers that made the seersucker suits, and that's where my family, my mother worked there. All of my sisters, when they got here to work, that's where they worked, in the sewing factories, and it was what they call piecework. If you made a suit, your job may have been just to make pockets. Somebody else's job was to set those pockets, and you made this. I couldn't see myself shooting out pockets all day. So I went to work in the French quarters. That was a big no-no. That was a terrible thing in everybody's eyes.
Raunchy a little bit back then, wasn't it? It was not exactly
I went to work in a restaurant. Now, you went to work in a restaurant, black people did not eat in restaurants. Well, we had none to eat. And those we had were corner little sandwich shops or something like that. And it was segregation, so you didn't eat in restaurants and you were towed. And I think this was to protect you from any hurt. They didn't tell you you couldn't go in this restaurant because you were black. Or they told you, no, don't go there because that's not clean. Everybody drinks out the same glasses. Now, we didn't even know nothing about sterilizing glasses or what. We just say, no, glasses are not clean. We're not going in that restaurant. So that was what they did to protect us, I think, from that. If you went to the movie, you sat way upstairs, and I always, still climbing, I want to sit there. No, you don't want to sit there because, look, you can see better up here, I want to sit there. So it was that kind of drive I had all my life, just to want to move up. Push.
Okay. And so you went to work Not as a seamstress, but in a restaurant.
As a waitress.
As a waitress.
Had never seen the inside of a restaurant in my life. That woman hired me, and you know, back in those days, you had to work. And you had to catch on in a hurry because they were not as tolerant as they are with employees. Employees were not as tolerant as they are today. They were not big on training. You had to kind of look and see what went on. And I went there one day, the next day she put me there by myself on the floor. Now, I don't know one blooming thing. A lady comes in and she orders hot cakes. Okay, I get the hot cake. I said, would you like some toast with that? Toast with hot cakes? What you gonna do with what I know? I don't know anything. So you learn as you go. You just learn from everybody. It was fun.
And then soon from being that waitress, you learned restaurants.
I learned restaurants, and I learned to really appreciate it. We were taught if they hired you for a job, you didn't just go there and do your job. You looked around. So I'm looking in the kitchen, I'm washing dishes in the kitchen, doing a little bit of everything. So I looked at the man, he's the chef, and no women in that kitchen. I didn't see any females in the kitchen. And I asked him, well, why they don't have any ladies in here? He said, because they can't pick up the pots anyway. Oh, no? I don't see you picking up any pots either. So, if somebody else picking up your pots. So it was always that battle for me to get where I had to go. Life has always been a battle. And it's getting to be bigger. This technology got me battling hard now, I'm battling all kind of ways now, trying to keep up and trying to keep going.
Well, right around this time, you did a couple of things. I was just reading bio, and it said you worked for a bookie and you managed boxers?
Well, look where it came from. I was the top of the line of 11 children, so I had to fend for myself. I didn't have anybody to teach me anything. You didn't have the help that you have today. And young people are fortunate today because they do have help. Corporations will come in and train you for this, or help you train. I didn't have that back in my day. You had to just wing it and find your own way. So when you get on that checkerboard and you push in that checker, you got to go from here. It may not work there. And you try this, it may not work there till you get that king line. That's what you're after, that king line.
Right, that king
so
line.
You stay on that checkerboard. So I had to move from one thing to another. I always liked sports. It's another thing when Joe Louis came on, must have been about 11 years old. And my grandfather told me, and he showed me a picture of Joe Louis. And he said to me, this man can beat anybody in the world. Boy, I thought that was terrific. This is something else. Here's the one man who can beat anybody in the world. That's who I like. That's what I like. So I started following boxing and seeing that. I loved the game. I loved it. Then it went down. Now it's beginning to pick up a little bit. But you see, that won't work for you. You manage boxes. You try to do this, and you said, no, Leah, this is not going to work. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to work there. So you get to the next step.
Right. Well, somewhere in all of those steps, you met a man named Edgar Chase.
That's the funniest thing you ever heard. I hated musicians. Hated musicians. I thought they were the stupidest things going. I never liked musicians because I like people with strength, and musicians showed me no physical strength. I like people with emotional strength, with physical strength. And here I didn't like musicians at all.
But you liked one musician.
Yeah. But if he were here today, he'd tell you himself, he had this big band, and he was on the road with a big band since he was 16 years old. He was dynamite with music. He had That was the era of big bands. You know, you had Stan Kenton, you had all the Count Basie, all the big bands, and he had a 17-piece band. So I'm dancing, and you know, I had a good shape then. I was kind of good to look at. My hair was black then, so I wasn't too bad to look at. So he always told this story, and he told his band members, "I'm going to dance with that girl." So they dared him to go dance because I was the big thing on the floor. So that's how I met Dookie.
A big thing on the floor.
I was the big thing.
All right, all right. Okay.
He danced, and I just danced with him, and it went from there. But he was totally different than a lot of musicians. As much as he loved music, he couldn't fit. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink, and those were the days musicians were heavy on the drugs because they had no places to play. But he kept on with his music as long as he could. Then he went in the restaurant with his mother after his father died. He hated that business. He didn't like it at all. But I loved it, and I think he kept, because I was pushing so hard, and he kept doing the things that I would like, even though he didn't understand me half the time. He didn't understand me half the time. He used to tell me, "Honey, God's going to punish you. You're just not right. You're just not right. God's going to punish you."
Now, you were married for how many years? You're making it sound like
70.
70 years.
Well, he died just before we would have been 71 in July.
I know.
And every year, he never ever forgot that day. I would forget it sometime, but not him. He'd come with this big bunch of roses. I said, "I told you I don't want those stinking roses anymore. Come with a big bunch of roses."
Yeah, you were not an easy ride.
I was not easy. And you know, this is not a very popular man today, but every time I talk to Bill Cosby, he'd say, "Leah, you killed him. You ran that man to death. You ran him to death." No, but I was just such a hard pusher, and he was easygoing. But he did everything for me.
And he also had his own quiet strength. He was one of the people he was the person who desegregated musical
he did a lot of work
events
on his own,
in New
and
Orleans.
People didn't know it. Yeah, he worked hard with the NAACP. He worked a lot of ways with all the things and that's where I first met Ben Smith. Before he started the ACLU, Ben would come to the restaurant. Now, this was strange for our restaurant. Now, that was the days when blacks and whites it was illegal to meet and to eat under one roof. You couldn't do that.
Getting ahead of your story now, because you don't have a restaurant yet. How'd you get the restaurant?
He had one then in 41.
He did? Okay, so it was his family's restaurant.
His family's
You married
restaurant.
into it.
I married it. I bulldozed my way in there.
Okay. And what was it like? What was the restaurant? Because it was a sandwich shop. It wasn't a restaurant at that point. What was it like in those days for people who may have been to Dookie Chase's today? What was it like then?
A whole different ball game, because as I told you, African Americans did not eat out. They ate at home. And what they would come out to do was drink. That was Friday, Saturday, you go out and you have your drinks, and naturally you need food to accompany that drink. So that's where my mother-in-law started making sandwiches and things like that to accompany the drinks that people had. People used to drink a lot in those days, but then they knew how to drink. You know, they didn't just pitch it down their throat like you see people doing today. You took a little sip, and you took another little sip, and you ate something, another little sip, and you were sipping all night. But you knew how to drink. So that's how, so when I came in there, I said, no, this is not going to work. We're going to do different. And this was so stupid and naive. I said, the only difference in people is the color of their skins. Now, that was stupid. You have different cultures. People have different tastes. You know, it's a whole different ball game. I said, why can't we have what they have? I came out of the French Quarters. Why we can't have the same thing they have on their menu? First thing I do, I'm going to go with the big boys. I'm going to put lobster thermidor on the menu. The people called me. They said, Emily, that girl going to ruin your business. She just going to ruin your business. They thought I was stone crazy. Then you look at that, you begin to grow a little bit, and you say, this is not going to work. I have to give them what we used to eating. So then I start with the jambalayas and the gumbos and the shrimp creole. And you know, the Creoles like stuffed everything. They stuff people, they stuff everything. So we start stuffing the chicken breast with oyster dressing. So they like that, the stuffed merlito. I had to give them what they liked.
Okay.
So that was kind of hard to do. And then, you know, you didn't have white tablecloths. I said, oh no, we got to have a tablecloth on this table. We got to set this table. You can't put silver on this table, the waitresses told me, because it'll be there. I said, I see those other people doing that. They setting up that table, so we got to set it up too. So we start setting up our table and putting all the silver out. Take the ketchup bottle off. Take the hot stuff bottle off. So but it was a struggle. It was really a hard struggle because my mother-in-law was very successful. The war was on then. Everybody was making money in the 40s, in the early 40s. After World War II started, everybody started making money. So she must say, here comes this stupid little girl. She's going to tell me how to make money. I'm already making money. But you just struggle on and keep going.
Okay, but as you made those changes gradually, or sometimes not so gradually, you began to grow a restaurant that then became successful as a restaurant.
As a restaurant. It became successful because I learned one thing. You have to push out hard. You have to push out with the people who are moving. You know, and we didn't know anything in the African American community about this thing. All we were doing was cooking good. We knew how to cook, but we didn't know how to market it. We didn't know how to get it out there, but those other people did. So I'm gonna get with them. Now that was another thing they didn't understand. You know, they think you're just trying to be what you're not. It wasn't that, it was I was trying to move up. I was trying to get what you got. I want the same thing for my people you have. So that was a hard struggle, But
you did it.
I did it.
You did it. You did it, and big time. Yes.
I did it.
And then after you did it, then they came. And your bio online speaks of just some of the famous and the infamous who have eaten at Dooky Chase's. When you came in, before Mrs. Chase began to speak, you heard Ray Charles give his accolades to Dooky Chase in his Early in the Morning Blues, where he mentions the restaurant specifically. But tell us some about the folks who have parked themselves at the various tables at Dooky Chase.
A lot of them. Well, Ray Charles was, my husband loved Ray Charles. He really liked him a whole lot. And because he was a musician, Ray understood that music, and he did that. He really helped Ray in his life, you know. One time Ray came, it always came to visit when he came to New Orleans, and I was looking for Ray's visit right before he died, but he didn't make it. Anyway, Ray would come and talk to Dooky and all kinds of things. And, you know, years ago, men would say, man, let me hold something. Now, let me hold something meant loan me something or something. So Dooky was just kidding, said, man. So Ray said, Duke, I'm not doing well, not at all. He said, my stuff is not selling. So Dooky told him, he said, Ray, why don't you start doing like our governor, Jimmy Davis, with that You're My Sunshine stuff. Start singing Western, country and Western, man. So Ray picked up on that, and he did well, turned him around, all around. Right. So he did a lot to do for people. He was big on that kind of thing, on helping people up the road.
Okay, and I'm going to shoot some names at you now. Michael Jackson.
That's another whole story. Michael Jackson. He was a sweetheart. I fed them every time they came to New Orleans. Well, there was no place else for them to eat, so here they come to me. I fed Michael till he was about 14, 15 years old. Then I didn't see him anymore, but I saw the brothers all the time. Tito and all those would come, all Jermaine and them would come all the time. But they would come, and their big thing to eat was pork chops and sweet potato pies. They liked that, but eventually they got off the pork chop. They got to be what I call clean guts. No more pork in my life. You come up on pork, but I'm giving it up. No more pork in my life. But he never forgot those sweet potato pies. So he had a bodyguard here that would visit them and in New Orleans. And the bodyguard would go up to see Michael and Jermaine and all them. So sometimes I would send the sweet potato pies. And when Michael died, I said, if I'd have just sent Michael some sweet potato pies, maybe. So Leah, you know how smart about she is. Mother, you can't help everybody. If you had been on earth when Jesus died, he'd have never been crucified. I said, no, he'd have never been crucified. I'd be throwing bricks at the people. But Michael loved those sweet potato pies, and every time I do sweet potato pies, I think about Michael. Yeah, so we fed them all. I fed.
Well, Sarah Vaughan, I know.
Sarah Vaughan.
And what was her specialty?
Stuffed crabs.
Stuffed crabs.
She called them crab cakes, but you'd make a stuffing and stuff it back in the shell and bake it. She loved her stuffed crabs. Mm-hmm. And she was good, easy to work with. Mm-hmm. She was strange. I said, Sarah, you going to rehearsal? She said, I don't rehearse. I just get up and sing. So she just get up and sing. Right. But she was just, you meet all these people and they're just humble and work hard. And I tell these young performers today, you got it good. I used to fuss with Winton. Winton would come complaining about this.
Winton Marsalis.
Yeah, Winton would be complaining. I said, Winton, I don't want to hear a thing about complaining about you. You just got out the shell, you're on top of the road. And he would tell me, look at, what's his name? He loved this man, Davis.
Miles.
Miles Davis. Look at Miles Davis. I said, Miles got a right to complain. You don't have a right to complain. Because Miles came up the hard way. No opportunity. You got to make it the best way you know how to make it. So shut up complaining. So Winton, he don't complain. I don't hear Winton don't complain anymore, but they're good people. I take care of their mother right now. I feed them every single day. I feed those Marsalis because they're good, talented people. They're really, yeah, they are good people. And I learned a lot from all those people. Okay. I fed them all. Fed Duke Ellington.
Nat King Cole.
Nat King Cole. Nat was something. I was home one morning, Nat came to get his breakfast. He was performing in New Orleans. And so Dookie calls me all in the uproar. You better come down here because Nat is asking for something we don't know what he's asking for. And you have to know how Nat Cole spoke. He spoke with a nasal, he talked through his nose a little bit. So he asked for, he said, Nat wants some fermented eggs. What? He wants some fermented eggs. I don't know what is a fermented egg. I don't know either. Come down there, Nat wanted a 4-minute boiled egg. So you get to know them all, and you get those little funny stories about them all of them. Then Duke comes in one day, he wants Guinness beer. Now, we never heard of Guinness beer. And here Duke Ellington wants his Guinness beer. So he and Dookie got to get in the car, go find Guinness beer or something. But you learn. People left, I fed them all. I fed everybody, Thurgood Marshall, the whole.
You fed the Freedom Riders.
Yep, the Freedom Riders, yeah. They would come to eat before they went out, and they would plan all of their things right in that dining room over a bowl of gumbo and some fried chicken. And they would plan, have their meetings, they would go out, they would sit in, Some people would come back, some people wouldn't. And, you know, you just talk it over. In some ways, Dr. Harris, I think we changed the course of America right in that restaurant.
I think you did.
Because they planned all these things they were going to do, and those freedom riders had it rough. It was unbelievably rough. If you would hear some of those stories. Some of them got killed, some of them got beat up. How they did this, I don't understand, but they just did it. So, and they would go to jail and come back. Now they're coming back looking like heck. They all dirty from jail. Leah, oh my God, I can't feed you in my dining room. You mean you're not gonna feed us, Miss Chase? No, go around the corner by Virgil, take a bath and come back. So Virgil was Aretha Castle Haley's mother, and Aretha was big in that civil rights movement. She was a big girl, working hard with the Freedom Riders. So they'd go to Virgil's, take a bath, come back, I feed them again. So, and I went to Paris to sign that book, a book. And my children always tell me, don't say, they don't want me to get involved politically. But you cannot live today if you don't get involved. You got to vote, you got to push people to vote. You got to pick people who's gonna move you and do things for you. But they don't like politics at all. I love it.
No, they don't like you in politics with your mouth.
I love it. I love that fight, you know, that come on, go get them, go fight. If I could have just took Hillary and pushed her a little harder. Come on, girl, get up.
All right.
She needed
All
that.
right.
She needed that. She needed somebody to push hard for her.
But you have served presidents. You served W several times.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Obama was...
And you served President Obama.
Yes.
And had some words for him. So tell him about that.
Yeah, I had to kind of slap his hand one time, and I realized, Lord, I hit the president. But he comes to my church, and he wants the gumbo. Okay, Mr. Obama, I'm going to fix gumbo for you. I said, and while you're eating the gumbo, I'll fry your chicken. Chicken go cold, you can eat it on the plane. Okay, first thing he does is ask for the Tabasco sauce. Oh, God. I said, Mr. Obama, you don't put hot stuff in my gumbo. You did that word spread all around like wildfire. And the neighborhood said, Miss Dookie, you told him, like, don't be messing up your gumbo. I said, don't mess up my gumbo. And he never forgot that. He said, you still mad at me? I said, no. So every time he came, if he ate somewhere else, and you know, when you're the president, you can't just eat at one place. Right. You got to go around. He would send for the gumbo. I would have to send gumbo in somebody else's restaurant for him. But it was fun feeding him.
And there's that wonderful picture of him just looking up at you with total adoration.
Yeah, he was a sweetheart.
He was
just somebody we all could be proud of. He served this country well, with dignity and pride. Man made us all look good. So we have to have leaders. When we vote, we be sure that those leaders can make us look good. He made us look good. He went out there good. I fed Mr. Bush was another whole story. But let me tell you about Mr. Bush. He was not a good president, but a kind of man you're never going to find. Every time he came to this city, he sent for me. He was always sending for me to be, and I had to sit right next to him. Maybe it was to ward off the shoes they were going to throw at him, I don't know. But always Leah sit right next to me. So I sat next to him at Commander's Palace, and he said, Leah, you want to fix breakfast for me? No, I sure don't, to myself, but I'll get up when you tell the president. Do you know he came unassuming the next morning? I fixed breakfast for about 15 of them. He had the president of Mexico and the prime minister of Canada with him, and I fixed food for all of them. No fanfare, no nothing. And he was just the kindest person you ever see. And when you raise children, Dr. Harris, you know, they may not do their job well, and he didn't do his very well. But being kind is something you can be proud of
Goes a
if
long
they
way.
grow up and know how to treat people.
Goes a long
And
way.
that's what he was. He was kind. And now he's supposed to be, his people are getting him to make a painting for me. I'll see it when I see it on my wall.
And that's a perfect segue, because now I want to share with the audience the secret. It's not about the food. It's about the art. Mrs. Chase has an astounding collection, an art collection, much of which is on the walls of the restaurant. So tell us a little bit about your collection and how you acquired it.
Well, you know, I started collecting that art because when I started in the early 70s with artists' work, the African American artists were not recognized like they are today. Again, you do something well, they're going to follow you. They're not going to let you have anything by yourself. So just do what you got to do, and the rest will come behind you. So I started putting their art on my wall because they had no place else. So, and artists are always hungry, so I feed them. They swap me off the art. John Biggers, Jacob Lawrence, Elizabeth Catlett. Oh, that was my good friend until the day she died. And all those people, Samela Lewis, all those people came to me and I fed them, got the art in return, so I'm the big winner there for that. And then my friend told me she was the only African American on that museum board in New Orleans at that time. And you rotate off after 3 years. So it was time for her to rotate off. She came to the restaurant. She said, Leah, I'm going to put your name up to take my place. I said, don't do that, Celestine, because I don't know one earthly thing about art. I knew nothing, not absolutely anything. So she said, but I'm going to put you. I said, go on, Celestine, just put it up there, thinking they were not going to vote for me.
This is Stella Jones.
No, that was Stella.
No, this is a different Stella. All right.
That was Celestine Cook I'm talking about.
Oh, Celestine, all right.
And she put my name up, and my name came up tied with a very famous Jewish man, knowledgeable in the arts, a whole lot of money, and that's who I'm tied with. It was Ida Kohlmeyer's brother-in-law. So then that makes the chairman have to vote when you come up with the tie. That man voted for me. And I never forgot Moise for that, because that led me to know he had vision. He was going to do something that was going to move people, and I never forgot him for that. He voted for me to be on that board over this man with all the money in the world. I had nothing, no knowledge or nothing, no money, no nothing. But he knew that he had to put an African American there to pick up the museum, to make the museum work.
But he also knew that you would do the work, and he knew that you had, the board thing, wealth, wisdom, or work.
So,
you had the work,
and
certainly.
then when I started hanging it in my restaurant, we didn't know anything about art. So when you went to buy furniture, what you buy? Give me a picture to go over my sofa. Give me a picture to match. So then you begin to learn that art does not have to match the sofa. You can put anything up there as long as it talks to you, as long as you can get something out of it, as long as it relates to you, you can do it. So we learned that, and I think we're learning everything pretty good here.
You're doing quite well.
We're doing good.
Quite well.
Got a long ways to go, but we're doing good.
And as my last question before we throw it open for questions, I've learned that after you turn 60, in conversation, everybody is always talking about legacy. So we know you're going to be here for another 9, never mind how many years. But I'd like you to tell me 4 things that you'd like to be remembered for.
First, I want people to remember me as somebody that even though you may do a lot of wrong things, you had good thoughts, good ideas. And, and always to help others. That's the one thing we came up, Jessica, as poor as I was when I came up, I was taught to live by. My daddy gave us 3 rules. One was to pray, work, and do for others. Those 3 rules get me all the way through. And he said, if you do that in life, you don't have to worry. And we were poorer than poor. But if he raised okra, you had to go around giving it all to the neighbors. You had to give it away, give this away. We couldn't take a little candy or nickel to go to the grocery for people. He made us give it back. You have to do something for somebody else. So I would like to see people help one another. If you get up that ladder, you help somebody else up there. Because get up a ladder by yourself, you're crazy. Because if you fall, you're falling all by yourself. And you know, it's hard. It's a struggle to get up. But boy, when you come rolling down, you come down. Bam. So, but if you have somebody up there with you to hold on to, that's just good common sense. Lift somebody up along the way. And that's all you do is make every man feel his worth. And if you do that, you know, you look in the street, there's a Catholic, you know, I was taught that man was created to the image and likeness of God. Well, I go out the door, I see somebody don't look like God to me. But look again. Just look again and talk to them, and you'll see good things. You'll see something good in that person. So it's up to you to try to bring it out. We lose people because we don't pay attention to them. You know, and today is getting worse than ever. We're not paying enough attention to our young men particularly. We just throwing them on the side. If mama can't do the job, sometimes you can just tell them something good and keep pumping it in them, something good, and it'll work. But you got to keep on. I see things, I was just telling some ladies today, I went to an art show years ago, and the man said, bring anything that's art, a poem, a picture, anything. So I read on this wall, beautiful poem, I should have copied that poem. And I looked at the bottom, it was written by Tupac Shakur. Now what we all thought Tupac was a drug addict, the words in the books, blah, blah, blah. But for him to write that, it was beautiful. There was something good there that we didn't get out. We just let it go. So we have to try to start lifting people up and looking at the good side of it. And, you know, you look at the world just like you look at art. You look at some of that art, you say, that's the craziest stuff I ever saw. It don't make any sense to me at all. But look again. And that's the way you have to look at life, and it's the way you have to look at people. You might not like what you see the first time, but look a little deeper. You're going to find something good in everybody out here. It's up to you. It's your job on earth to help get that person up there. It is your job. Your job is not to sit down and say, oh, look at him, he's this, he's a junkie. You tell him that. And you can tell him that, and he won't get offended. The people across from me, at the project before it was torn down, I had all kinds of people. I had some of the worst drug addicts there going. I had some good old people, some good young people, some good people, some bad people. But you know who were my protection? The bad ones. They were my policemen. I was there when the storm came, 65 years. Nobody touched anything in that restaurant. They looked out for me. They looked out for me. And if you just treat people like people, and that was their way of helping me back. You're not going to do this to Dick Chase. You're not going to do this here. And, you know, they fuss at me today. Miss Chase, why you let him in here looking like that? We don't come in your restaurant looking like that. Don't let that man looking like that come in. They tell you how they want the customers to look. But, you know, it's just the way you treat people and how you treat them is the way they're going to help you out. They might have all kind of problems, but they will help you out, and they were my people. I'll never forget the people who made me, and a lot of people made me what I am today. And I never forget them, and I'm grateful for those who got me up here, you know, and I tell them all the time, I'm not a leader. I can't be a leader, but I can be a good follower. I can be a good follower. I'm like old General Patton. You lead, follow, or get out the way. Now, I get out the way.
I think that's a good place to end it. And in India, they have a tradition where the younger salutes the elder by touching their feet. So, I love you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Now, she was doing nicely all the time. Now she's getting ugly. The elders. Look what they do, the elders in my country.
See? All right, try to do something nice.
You get old enough to be in the museum. When you're old, they park you everywhere. You're old, put you in the museum.
Anyhow, this is the point where we have a little time left for some questions. I believe there are 2 microphones at the back. If you would go to the microphone, and please, questions, not comments. Yes.
I have a question for Mrs. Chase. I'm Johari, your Washington pound cake person, and I want to know what you did to adjust people's being able to get your gumbo on planes. I remember when I was traveling to New Orleans that we could come to your restaurant on the morning of the day that we were going to leave, and that you would have some of your gumbo in containers frozen that we could take on planes with us. So since 9/11 and all of that, and you can't take a whole lot of stuff on planes anymore, do you still do that? Or how have you adjusted to people coming by to get your gumbo to take it with them?
We do that now. You can take it with you if you give it me a couple of days to freeze it hard. I can freeze it and pack it, and I still ship it to those who can afford it. Shipping is so
She's looking at me. I know I can't afford it.
She can't afford it. But, you know, who I ship to? Quincy?
You ship to Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones, I ship to everybody. But it's so costly to ship this stuff till it's too costly to eat it now. So if you come and I have pint-sized things frozen, you can take it with you. You know, it'll hold on a plane, but you have to carry it on there. And it has to be frozen hard for them to take it. But all over the world, then I still ship gumbos all over. And some people I ship whole dinners to. The whole thing, if they want this, that, and the other, jambalaya and all, I fix the whole dinner and ship it to them. But it's just so costly today to do that. You know, the people that I don't get it very much.
You can do it for a special occasion.
Yes, special occasion.
Yes, let's do alternating sides. Yes, please.
Hi, Mama Chase. It's good to see you. Good to be here. A question. You mentioned briefly, you talked about the Freedom Riders and the work that happened coming out of the restaurant. I don't think a lot of people know how much New Orleans was a part of the civil rights movement and the impact that the people that were working in New Orleans had on the civil rights movement. Could you just talk a little bit more about how the restaurant was a hub for the work that was going on and how integral the city was to what was going on nationally?
You know, I just did, you know, you do things, man, and people come in and say, well, you don't have a picture of this? We didn't have cameras around like you have every time you turn around, somebody clicking a camera at you. We didn't have that. We didn't document things like we should have because we didn't have all that equipment and we didn't have all the knowledge. We just did what we had to do. Now, I had a lady working for me that was Aretha Haley's mother. Now, she worked for me for 42 years. And she was there, and I knew that her daughter was a big freedom rider. They were big in the movement. So we fed them, we did, and for some uncanny reason, the police never bothered us. And when I think back about my mother-in-law and think about how they let us get by with a lot of things, some of it may have been because of her, because years ago we didn't have black policemen. We had only white policemen. And the policemen who had our beat, they would come in. Now, of course, you couldn't do this today. They would call that bribery. She would say, "Oh, baby, let me fix your little sandwich." And it was just out of the goodness of her heart that she would give them a sandwich, give them a root beer, and go on. Nothing said. We just do that. It's just kind. You're kind to me, I'm kind to you. And that worked well, and maybe that helped us, that people didn't bother us,
that hub.
that we could be that hub. And it was like one woman was interviewed, and she said it was a safe haven for all of us. You felt when you came to Dookie Chase's, you were safe. You felt good about coming out there. You felt that people, and we just did what we had to do. And we didn't make any fanfare about it. The Freedom Ride, I can't get out here and go picket and do things like that.
But you can
I
feed
think
people.
you're crazy as a bat when you're doing that. So what, because we didn't want our children to go to jail. We didn't understand that. People my age didn't understand all that. But I got to try to support you. I got to try to help you do the work you're going to do. And if feeding you helps you, that was easy for me to do. It was easy for me to do.
You've got 4 more questions, and just as a point of information, there is a movement afoot to put a civil rights monument on Aretha Castle Haley Boulevard in New Orleans. So,
Yeah, maybe we'll get it up. When we clear all this monument thing out of here, maybe we'll get something out there.
oh, well, there you go.
We know that's his grandmother.
Well, I didn't know it, but there you go. Y'all had,
Yeah, that's Blair.
y'all
Great
had
singer.
a plant.
I knew Blair since he's a little baby.
All right.
Sings good. Turned his mother from Baptist to Catholic.
Okay, that's what you did.
His grandmother turned his grandmother from Baptist to Catholic.
All right, well, let's get onward then, since that's a family thing.
It's a family thing.
Please, it's this side, and then we'll get back to you. Yes?
Good afternoon, Mrs. Chase. It's such a pleasure to see you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
My parents are proud New Orleans residents. They have passed, but all they talked about when we grew up was you and your husband and the food in New Orleans. That's all they ever talked about, how much they loved New Orleans. And I just wanted to say, I make pralines today, and they're from the family tradition. And I know that you're always on television making your wonderful dishes, and I watch everything that you're on. I just wanted to ask, while in D.C., where is your favorite restaurant?
You know, I don't know much about restaurants in D.C. I have a friend that has this restaurant, I love him, in this Marcus Samuelson, got Red Rooster in New York. And I knew Sylvia. Sylvia was trying to be older than me, but she wasn't. But she was a trailblazer. Now
Yes, she
Sylvia was
was.
dynamite. It took some gutsy things for Sylvia to do what she did. And I had a lot of just fine
The
regards for
question
her.
was Washington.
I don't know anybody in Washington.
well, we'll
I don't
have to
believe I do.
get
Do
some
I know
suggestions.
anybody? Where can
We'll
I
get
eat
some
in Washington?
suggestions afterwards.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think I know anybody in Washington.
Please. We'll get suggestions afterwards. There's book signing afterwards. You can write it out on a piece of paper and slip it to
where I should
Mrs.
go
Chase.
eat.
Please.
Mrs. Chase, I'm also from New Orleans and grew up eating in your restaurant for every family occasion and birthday, so it's an honor to be here. But my question is about, in the current day, what is your impression of the lack of black chefs in the city of New Orleans and the future generation?
That's a good question. Now, you know, when you're talking about in New Orleans, years ago, there were only black people in
That
that
was the
kitchen.
Rudy Lombard book.
Rudy Lombard, who was a freedom rider, wrote that book
Creole
in the
Feast.
70s and showed you all the people who made those restaurants, but they got no acclaim. But now, because it was the restaurant that got the acclaim, now the chefs was a big thing. When I came up, it wasn't a big thing. I was criticized because I was just a cook. Oh, she is a cook. That's nothing. That's not even society. She's a cook. So now the chef is a big thing. So what you have to have is that little piece of paper, that little certificate to say I'm a certified chef. And that's where we lost out. We didn't have it. So they can't advertise a Leah Chase and she has nothing behind her name.
They can.
Nothing to do. They could have, but they didn't. There was only one restaurant in New Orleans that hired a black executive chef, and that was Upperline. That was Joanne Clevenger.
Joanne Clevenger and Ken Smith.
And Ken Smith, she hired this black boy. But you see, nobody was going to take that chance. They wanted something to give them visibility. Oh, this chef went to this school, and this chef went to that school. So naturally, you go and see what he learned in the school, so you could go to their restaurant. So we lost a lot. But there were black chefs. One restaurant in that city years ago was a restaurant called Corinne Dunbar's. Nobody knew who was in that kitchen. It was all black women in that kitchen. One black man, he was the doorman at the door. But that kitchen was run, but nobody knew that. They didn't know that. They just knew they were going to Corinne Dunbar's. But they didn't know who was in the kitchen, who made that restaurant. So that's why I tell all young people, if you're interested in this industry, and in New Orleans, it is a good industry, go to a culinary school, get something under your belt, and then you get in there, and then you show them what you can do. I was just lucky enough to be pushy enough to get with all of them, and now they help me out. I go with all of them now, but it's just that's something you're not going. Women, and you know who took the place of those black men? White women. They went in there, and they work like a son of a gun now. They can work, they can cook, they can do it all. So we have to get our people educated. It's a good industry, and I tell them all the time, I have some people that come and they got this food truck. That's a new thing. And I said, oh Lord, I wouldn't eat a thing off a food truck. What is this food truck? But I learned that food trucks can start you in a good business. You just take something and go. I know one black man who's got a food truck in Atlanta. He sells stuffed potato. I said, what in the world? I want to go out and buy a stuffed potato. He takes that potato, he might stuff it with lobster, with shrimp, with gorgeous stuff. So you're creative. We can do that. You just got to be gutsy enough to get out and take that chance. It's not going to be easy. It's hard work, but you got to get on that checkerboard, as I told you, and push. Don't take your finger off that checker till you get to that king line, because somebody's going to jump you. Just keep pushing, keep pushing. But we got so much potential that we got to use it. We got to start pushing out there. Take the chance. It's all over. Life is risky.
Okay, thank you very much. No, if you have a question, please go to the mic. And we're going to hear, how many more people are up there for questions? 1, 2. Okay, we'll hear you. You'll be our last question, please.
Thank you. Ms. Chase, I was watching TV one day. It was a Julia Child show. And I was watching this woman make a sweet potato pie. And my problem was I hadn't any paper and pencil to write down the ingredients or anything to record what was going on. And to my surprise, it was you.
Yeah.
So another phase of your career with food. How did you like working with Julia Child? How did you like working on television?
Television still frightens me. I don't like that at all. I like to do what I do. Working with Julia Child was really something else, because she was a great lady, and she was an humble lady. She didn't lord over you, like, here you are, nothing and nobody. She didn't do that. She just wanted you to show the best you could do with what you have, and she learned everything she could learn. She was good about teaching her stuff to everybody, and she was just a good lady. I worked twice with Julia. I worked once in New Orleans and once on that television show with her. She was just easy to work with and a good person for this industry. So we had a lot to learn from Julia. I pick up a lot from everybody. You know, sometimes you steal their stuff and you go with it and you do what you got to do with it. You change it to what you want it to be. But they leave you something, and it's up to you to pick it up and go, and that's all I did. She was great to work with, though.
Okay, thank you. Please, next question.
Yes, my name is Clarence Adams. Ms. Chase, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us and the legacy that you gratefully hold. I had the opportunity to meet you a couple of times. Pretty sure you probably don't remember me, but your husband, Dookie, and I was actually good friends. I used to send him shirts from Hawaii. And my question is that the most impressive thing, not only your cooking, but the wall that you had with all of the photographs of all the famous people that visit your restaurant, is that still intact? And is that, did the flood or anything have any effect on that?
Yep. No, now, I don't get on my floor too much anymore because I walk too slow. That's the only thing I have a problem with is my knees, and I walk too slow. And then I'm such a stickler for service that I let my daughter hang out on the floor because I can't deal with it. If I'm on that floor, I'm going to see everything you're doing wrong. I tell people, when you hit that front door, that's like my company coming. I want you to treat them like company. Well, sometimes they don't even know what company is. When you were a little girl drinking out of jelly glasses and drinking out of any old bottle, when your aunt came and the visitors came, that your mother told you, company's coming, get out the good stuff. Well, that's what I want at my restaurant. Everybody who hits that door is my company. I want them treated like company. And that's 90% of eating is service. It's how you can, don't tell me a customer has an attitude. What are you talking about? That customer might be tired. She might be coming off of the worst thing in the world. Sit her down. Feed her good. Give her a glass of lemonade. Do something, and then she feels better. There's no such thing as a customer with an attitude. In my book, there's no such thing as a wrong customer. I said, that customer got the money in his pocket and you want it out.
Thank you. And our last question for today.
Oh, my name is Patricia Monjay Richard. I was born in New Orleans, but I grew up in Baton Rouge. And I remember as a small girl, my cousin had a taxi stand, Butler's Texaco on Simon Bolivar, and he would take my family there to eat, and there was never a time that we went there to eat that you didn't take time to come over and talk to us, and we loved you, and we kept coming back. My Aunt Clara had my Aunt Gola had a restaurant on 6th Avenue, but your restaurant surpassed everything that I had ever eaten in my life. You were great, and you were so kind to us, and I, from the bottom of my heart, first want to thank you, and I also want to know, how did you get the pay? Even when I came back after we had lived in Europe and we came back to the United States, I brought my children there to meet you. And you took time out to talk to them and explain everything to them. And I said, this lady I knew when I was small, and look how good she is. And they were so impressed with you. So I owe a lot of gratitude to you for the way you treated me, my family, and the city of New Orleans.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now people come to my kitchen, and now everybody has to come to my kitchen because I tell you I don't go on the floor too much. I do my kitchen work, I cook, and then I sit down and fuss the rest of the day. And I let the people come in my kitchen, and that sometimes upsets my daughter. My people can't be coming next to the, I said, look, I want to talk to the people before they go. I like to talk to people, and I like them. You see a kitchen, you might see something wrong in the kitchen sometimes. We're cooking in there, so you can have some food out of place or something. But I want to talk to you, and I enjoy that. That's what makes me go people. You got to have people. You can't live without people, all kinds of people. You'd be surprised, just everybody comes from everywhere. I get them from all over the world now. And they just come and they just talk to you. Some of them can't figure us out. Sometimes I can't figure myself out. I don't know whether I'm coming or going. But, you talk to them and they feel good and you feel good, so you're happy.
All right.
People
That's
make
good
you
word
happy.
to end on. Anyhow, please, Mrs. Chase will be out in the lobby signing her books if you want some of those recipes. They are in the Dookie Chase cookbook. She'll be outside signing her books. Give us a minute to get back.
Okay, get back there.
Thank you,
Thank
and
you.
thank you.
Thank you. I want to see you when you come home.
There you go.